Okay, we finished protists. Now we're going into helminths or worms. Okay. And these are parasitic worms. They are invertebrates. They are classified by their shape, and we usually subdivide them into flatworms, which are flat, and roundworms, which are round. Flatworms are in the phylum Platyhelminthes, and the roundworms are in the phylum Nematoda, frequently called nematodes. These worms will have microscopic infective stages where we can't pick them up too easily, but when they get into these infective stages, diagnosis stages, if we get into some tissue and we can actually get a hold of an egg, we can make the diagnosis. And you can get the eggs or the larvae, and that will help us look for it again. We're going to do this via an oven parasite. So we're going to be looking for these eggs, or we may get a piece of tissue, and the pathologist will look at that. The vectors are animals that carry and transmit these pathogens. When we look at some of the terminology, you have to realize these guys have, if the adults are the sexually reproductive stage sometimes, and the larvae are the younger developmental stages or asexual stage. They usually produce eggs, and then when they get into a system, they can be encapsulated and form cysts. Some of these guys are hermaphrodites, both sexes in one body. Some of them have separate sexes, and some of them have the ability to produce offspring without fertilizing any eggs. So they have a wide variety of ways of reproducing. All right, so we're going to look at roundworms and these flatworms. The roundworms, the nematodes, have been adapted to every place on Earth. Freshwater, marine water, terrestrial, oceans, mountains, deserts, even gold mines way down below the Earth. You can see 3 kilometers down in gold mines in South Africa. These guys are amazing. They can just about any environment. All right, so one of the more important ones, or some of the more important ones, is Tinea. This is your tapeworm. It's a flatworm because it looks like a piece of measuring tape. And you can get it from undercooked beef, Tinea satinata, undercooked pork, selenium, and there's an Asian variety, also. And that is also pork. Basically, what you do is you get infected by eating these raw or undercooked beef or pork. And as a former microbiologist, I do not eat undercooked anything, okay, because of it. But I will tell you, this little guy here is part of the reason why, if you're Jewish faith, you don't eat pork, because this particular tapeworm was endemic in the Middle East. So the people from that area that were the Jewish people did not eat pork because of the tapeworm infestation, just FYI. You may never know that you have a tapeworm because they're usually mild or non-existent. You can coexist with these guys until you really start to get a major infestation. And so what happens is the cyst forms, and basically that cyst penetrates in the musculature of the particular animal, and you can see it. And that animal becomes infected by ingesting vegetation contaminated with the eggs or the gravidopleuroglottids. And then you can see this is the infective piece, and then we can pick it up You get it in the humans, the skolnick attaches to the intestinal tract and begins to get its nutrition from you. And as long as you don't get it too many a number, you can generally do okay. You can get a pretty good infestation of these guys. I have seen this. Remember that when you get a worm infestation, that your body responds with eosinophils to try to kill these guys. I will tell you, with a worm infestation, I remember one case that came in and they presented to a neurologist because they had neurological symptoms. And the CBC came in. We did the CBC, the blood count, and the eosinophil count was 50%. I'm just like, whoa. And so when I reported that to the neurologist, we're like, okay, this guy's got a worm infestation. We got to go look for this. This is also the reason, FYI, if you have pets and you do their counts, or birds, they have high eosinophil counts because they frequently come in contact with these worms and stuff like that. So just FYI, the body has an ability to respond. One of the table form, I chose this one because it's easy. We get good pictures of it. But this is the tapeworm. This is the skolnick. This is the mouth. And then you move back through the different sections, which are called proglottids. And you have the immature ones, and you have the more mature ones. And as you get towards the back of the worm, you get where the ovaries and the uterus are, because that's most of the worm. And gravid means it has eggs. So these little tiny dots are the ovaries with the eggs on them. If you take a look at the actual tapeworm, you can see there it's a flat worm. It's not a round worm, and it's had these little segments, these little proglottids. This is the skolnick. This is how it attaches, and it has these little hooks that it can grab a hold of your intestinal tract and dig in. If you've got enough, it can cause anemia because it's going to draw blood from that intestinal tract, and it's going to then feed off your nutrition. Lovely little thought. All right, so another flatworm are the flukes. These infect liver tissue in a wide variety of mammals, including humans. Okay. And usually what happens is the eggs are passed in the feces and they enter the fresh water, the eggs hatch, and these guys are free swimming, and they infect some kind of water organism, usually snails. I'm very careful if you eat snails, but basically what will happen, that's the intermediate host, and then they mature into flukes and that sort of thing. And you can look at, they're ingested. These little cysts that are in the water are ingested along with the aquatic plants by the sheep or the cattle. So what's happening is these eggs are passed in the feces of the cow that is infested. They're pooping, okay, in the water as they walk through and stuff like that. And then these guys break open and they form their little cysts, and they infect snails or something like that, and they get ingested along with the snails get ingested along with the plants that the cattle are eating or the sheep are eating, and then they come into the human and they migrate from your intestinal tract to your liver. Okay, long trip, but yeah. So the sheep's liver fluke is more common where sheep and cattle are raised. And again, we usually contract it by ingesting contaminated raw freshwater plants like watercress. Yeah. Or drinking untreated water containing the larvae. So just FYI. But it's the sheep that are contaminating the water, and then you're eating something coming from the water. All right. So I'm going to show you the sheep's liver fluke in a second. Another flatworm is Clinorchus sinensis, sinensis meaning China. It is the most prevalent fluke in Asia, a third most in the world. It is actively transmitted in you can see Korea and Vietnam and China and Russia. Most of these infections occur in China from eating infected fish. These guys stopped a war. The Chinese were going to invade, and they stopped it at a lake that happened to have these, and they were eating their fish, and everybody came down with it, and they had to turn around and go home. So it can make you really unhappy person. Generally, you get these, and you get jaundice, indigestion, inflammation of your bile duct, obstruction of your bile duct. You can get liver cirrhosis. You can even get cancer from these guys. The difference for the test, and I really like when you look at it, is the size. And these are pretty true to size. Your Fasciola hepatica, your sheep's liver fluke, in the adult is about an inch and a half. Okay? Clinorchus is this tiny little guy. I mean, tiny, thin little guy. So you can see how he could be easily missed. Okay? But both of them, you ingest them, and they're called liver flukes because once you ingest them, they leave the intestinal tract and go to the liver and infect the liver. That's the problem with both of those. Okay. So now we're going to look at those are really the only 3 Helminths that I want you to look at. Now we're going to go into nematodes, your roundworms. Okay. First one is Enterobus vermicularis, or the pinworm. Yeah. It is widely known as the pinworm due to the female's long pointed tail. It is the most common worm in the United States. It is frequently asymptomatic, but the most typical symptom is itching around the anus at night. That is when that female comes out to feed. Show you a picture. And so you're going to get itching. And when you start scratching and start digging, you can get these, a lot of problems and super infections. So when you look at this here's our lovely little pinworm, and you can see that lovely little elongated tail. And this is, the anus, and this is the guy coming out, and there are the little eggs, which we can identify by the eggs. But this is your pinworm that kids, you start worrying about with kids. Okay? Just mainly get rid of them, but the main thing is the itching, the butt itching, if you will. Okay. All right. Trichinella spirillis. This is the smallest nematode. It has a very unusual life cycle, but it is most widespread, important clinical parasites in the world, one of the most. The adult worms mature in the small intestine of a host, usually a pig, and the adult female, as I said, produces batches of live larvae which bore through the intestinal wall and enter the bloodstream and then go into basically to the striated muscle. And the same thing happens to us. So when we get it, it goes into our striated muscle, but mainly it's in that, in these animals. It's caused by, here we go, raw or undercooked meat from animals infected with parasites, especially pork. Think again of the Jewish people. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. If you eat undercooked meat, can be really, really bad in areas where this thing is endemic. The main thing that you remember is the spirillus, spiral. This guy enters the bloodstream to feed on it, and the lymphatic system, it gets carried to striated muscle. Okay? And it insists there. And so what we usually get to find this is we get a tissue sample, and we have striated muscle, and there's the trichinella. Okay? A very interesting little guy, and it causes trichinosis. Another one is Decatur americanus, obviously in the Americans, New World hookworm. It is found in the tropical and temperate areas. It thrives in the warmer climates. The eggs require moist, warm environment to hatch. The United States primarily found in young school children, economically deprived rural areas. The larval form is able to penetrate skin when walked over in bare feet. So it can penetrate the skin, it will travel through the blood vessels in the heart and reach the lungs. And once it's in the lungs, it will burrow in the alveoli of the lungs and travel up the trachea, which then the person swallows, and it gets carried into the small intestine. Yeah, it's kind of weird way it gets around. But the bottom line is it ends up in the small intestine, and wherever it attaches, it has hooks. It has some nasty hooks, and I'll show them to you. It can cause iron deficiency anemia or protein loss. It can cause 30 mLs of blood loss per day. So again, iron deficiency anemia can be result and can cause mental retardation or growth insufficiency in the kids. Infected patients usually have abdominal pain exacerbated by meals. Diarrhea and bloating and nausea, not fun, okay? Here's what this little nasty guy looks like. That's a close-up. There's little hooks, but you can see these lovely little hooks. And it just grabs on and hooks on into that intestinal tract and beats. Okay? Same thing with, dogs. That's why you want to get your dogs dewormed if they say they got hookworms. Yeah, rid of them. Ascaris limbricoides. It's the largest intestinal roundworm that we have. It's the most common one in humans worldwide. It is uncommon in the U.S., thank you. But outside the U.S., it can be fairly common. So one of these travelings, you have to be careful. Okay. Most people have no symptoms, but a heavy infestation can be serious. I'm going to show you how big these guys can get. It's most often found in children in tropical and subtropical regions of the world, especially with poor sanitation and hygiene. Just FYI, so if you're traveling in some place. These guys can grow, over a foot long. Okay? These have male and female of the species. And look at that pile of worms that they got out of somebody. Yeah. Ooh. Okay? So you can see the female and you can see the male. All right. So those are the big worms that we kind of worry about. Yeah, this is just a fun little lecture, but yeah, these are the guys we have to worry about. But you can see these guys are a foot long, and can imagine those guys in your intestinal tract. Yeah, not a happy camper. All right, so next come the lovely little fungi.